Hi everyone, my name is Brittany and I'm sharing my open heart surgery journey with you in a 5-part series. If you haven't watched the first 3 parts, I suggest you do so that you'll have the background information as to what I'm talking about today. In this video, I am going to go over things I would change if I had to do this all over again. So let's dive in. If I knew then what I know now, there are 4 big things I would change if I had to do this all over again. The first would be managing expectations. Now, I talked about this in my previous video, so I'm not going to go into detail, but basically I would set my expectations so that they are realistic. And I know that's really hard because you don't necessarily know what to expect in surgery, but just know that a lot of times it's not going to go the way you planned. So make sure to be flexible and to not get caught up in the frustrations of not meeting those expectations. You might even have expectations that you didn't know you had, and make sure that you keep those in check as well. The second thing I would change if I could do this over again would be realizing that getting a new heart won't significantly change me. And what I mean by that is I had the viewpoint of I'm going to get a new heart, therefore I'm going to get a brand new, or I'm going to get a new valve, therefore I'm going to get a brand new heart, and everything will be so much better. So I'll be able to run marathons and I won't have as much chest pain, I won't have any shortness of breath. And that's realistically not what I experience. I really just feel the exact same as how I did beforehand. Yes, I have less shortness of breath. Yes, I have less chest pain, and my heart doesn't stop like it used to, but I don't have this bionic body that can now climb Everest and run marathons. It's really the same as what it was before. So making sure that I know that going into it would really have helped a lot of frustrations that I had during the process. Item number 3, if you don't listen to anything else I say, listen to this one thing, because this is the biggest thing I would change if I were to do it again. Physical stress is different than work stress. And what I mean by that is you will be pushing yourself really hard during cardiophysical therapy, trying to take as long of walks as possible outside of physical therapy, and doing everything else to try and integrate your life back as quickly as possible. So when I was granted permission to go back to work at 3 months, being the driven person I am, I of course went back right when they granted permission. I think going back stunted my recovery. I worked a pretty stressful job at a CPA firm at the time, and I think that I just didn't understand the difference of good physical stress and bad work stress. And I bring this up to you because I didn't even notice it at first, but 7 months after my surgery, I went on a national park trip, and for 7 days straight, I went on really difficult hikes. If any of you know Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, that was one of the days. And during that week, I had never felt even as close to as good during that week as I did any of my other weeks in that year of recovery. And if I were to go back, I would recognize that work stress really stunted my recovery, and I would not allow myself to go back at bare minimum for 6 months. Maybe even push it to 9 months, which is really hard for me to do, but I think that would have been best for my long-term health. I was granted 3 months of FMLA leave, and then because my condition was serious, I was granted another 12 months of medical leave, which I didn't take any of it. And now looking back, I wish I had, because I don't think I would have struggled with 18 months of not getting quality sleep if I would have really taken care of my body and focused on it for those first 6 or 9 months. So I can't urge you enough to make sure you understand the difference between regular, normal, everyday stress and physical stress. Just because you can push yourself in cardiophysical therapy on the treadmill, walking, whatever it may be, doesn't mean you can push yourself to having a really stressful job and jumping back into the stresses of life. Don't do it. That's one mistake I did, and I would never make it again. The last thing I would change is don't write anything off. And you're probably wondering, what does that mean? Well, let me give you an example. As you lead up to surgery, you're going to go to a lot of pre-surgery appointments, which they'll talk about everything you need to know. One of those things is that everyone struggles with situational depression, and you probably will as well. And in my unwise thinking, I thought, well, I've never struggled with depression before. That's something that's not applicable to me. Therefore, I don't need to be thinking about that amongst all of the other things I'm dealing with right now. Fast forward to 6 months after surgery, I visit my cardiologist and I again tell him about my sleeping issue and I say, I'm just really tired. And he looks at me and he goes, Brittany, that's depression. And if I were to acknowledge that I had depression at that time, and honestly, I don't know if I did or not. I really think I was tired because I wasn't sleeping. Maybe I would have gotten on the medication I needed to really give me a bump up to get out of the sleeping battle that I struggled with basically by myself for 18 months. So don't write anything off that you think you aren't going to deal with or that it isn't applicable to you, because you can see that the situation that I probably should have acknowledged that I had and that I should have gotten medication for, I didn't, and therefore I suffered for it by myself for a long time when I maybe didn't have to. So don't write anything off when you're going to all of those appointments, because that could be a detriment to you when you're recovering. Okay, everyone, those are the 4 big things that I would change if I could do it all over again. Have you had surgery, and are there other things that you would change if you had to go through it again? If so, comment down below so we can all learn from your experience in addition to mine. And if you haven't had your surgery yet, and if you have questions on any of the 4 points that I very briefly went over, comment with those down below so that I can include those in the Q&A at the end of all of these videos. So let's get on to the last section.